Season 9 was the last time we raced here at the circuit, and Owen's last Red Bull win came at the circuit in his championship winning season. He's on an absolute tear and about to have another championship winning season with the way it has started for this one. We're glad to have you all aboard for round 3 of the season. Canada is one of the older street circuits we race at in RPL, let alone of the tracks available. This track features 14 turns, 4 different chicanes, 3 DRS zones, and as always, especially this track in particular, there is always a chance for some pop-up showers around this place. I'm Ryan Searles, your commentator for tonight around this amazing event. This is the last Tier 2 event of the year 2023. Before our 2-week break kicks off, we've got all 20 drivers aboard, and now we're about to get going. Chat and viewers alike, we're proud to have you here for full qualifying and 35 laps here tonight for this event. Welcome along. So, we've got a lot to go over. We've got a lot to talk about. A lot of returning faces, a lot of faces who are just familiar in general. A lot of big highlights, big headlines, some penalties. There's quite a few things we could go over for sure, no doubt about it. But we're glad to have you here first off. Firstly, I want to talk with one of our team principals. Who in the world has just joined the lobby? I don't even recognize the name. No, firstly, what I was going to say is I want to have one of our team principals join us tonight. And I'm not having him join for the full time. It's not my plan, unless something changes. But I want him to join because round 1 we had Alpine Academy represent us alongside in the commentary box to talk about what their expectations are like for the season, what the academy, the team is like. And for Hunted as well, who is the past champion, he represented them 2 weeks ago in Brazil. He spoke about what the difference was like moving from Red Bull to Alpine. He didn't really know a lot on what the academy was like and what it's going to be like. Obviously sitting out the first race due to contract stuff, but he went over his expectations for the Alpine Academy and now racing for McLaren. He's going to maybe mount another title charge. He didn't know if a podium was possible on Alpine, but the McLaren is more of a competitive car, so he should be getting those podiums. Last week he had a bad race in Texas, a very unlucky one at that. So realistically, the expectations are up for this time. And tonight we are going to be having our second dose of team principals talk about the academy's expectations, the team's expectations, and whatnot. And joining us in just a couple of moments will be the Ferrari team principal of Groggerz. Evening, Invade. Good to see you in chat. We have 20 drivers aboard. I want to go over 2 names tonight before we get started with anything else. Bonkers is making his return for the first time since, I want to say it was the Season 9 finale for him. It would probably sound correct if it was the Season 9 finale for Bonkers. That is the last time he made a start. And Term in RPL last made a start at the end of the F123 game cycle. It seems like forever ago with how long it's been since Term made a start in RPL. Just to pull it up here, I want to make sure it's correct here. I have it right here, I think. End of F122 was his last start. I don't remember what tier it was in, but first start this game cycle. He'll be the 100th different one to make a start in this game cycle as we're about to end 2023. And as we're about to end 2023, we want to talk about this season and what the expectations are. Groggerz, welcome along.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. What about you?
I'm okay. A little bit ill, but ready for this Tier 2 masterclass as always.
So we'll go on board with some laps. We'll talk about them later on as we get into the session. Hopefully no rain is coming because there's a lot of cloud cover on certain areas of the track. But I want to speak with you about Ferrari as we spoke with Hunted the last time in Brazil about Alpine. You're here representing Ferrari today. you are team principal of Ferrari. Ferrari has Alfa Romeo and Haas with them as well, helping out what you could call a partnership. But for those new in RPL and not aware, it's team principals having an academy. So it's either 2 or 3 teams. So Groggerz here owns the Haas, Alpha, and Ferrari cars. With that being said, that kind of partnering you have 3 teams to focus on, and the big thing with that is it's a bigger role than you're used to. I mean, you've been used to this kind of role before. You were kind of the step down from team principal. What is it like being team principal now for Ferrari that you've been in that role for a little under a month now?
It's definitely much easier than what it used to be because obviously you had to be in charge of Formula 2 teams as well, but now that's gone, or they aren't part of the academy. It's definitely easier. Um, I'd say I do rely quite a lot on my coaching principal, Jack. He's very helpful, but I think once you've like it's very mixed because 1 minute being a team principal can be very sort of full on, stressful, and there's a lot to do. And then the next minute there's nothing to do and no point being there, sort of thing. So we're sort of past that for the minute, where it sort of looks like it's more the quiet season. You know, all the drivers are signed. We've got quite a few reserves. So now it's just sort of making sure we give the drivers we've signed the best chance or whatever, and see how they do.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have a stacked lineup, a lot of backlash in the best joking way, at least, of the amount of reserves you guys have signed. I want to hit on a different topic before we get to the reserves, because I mean that's perfect for a team like you guys. You guys need them, in races where some of your main guys miss. I want to hit on a different area in terms of how you took over this role for Ferrari. I'm gonna turn the game volume down. Just, I mean, you're talking loud enough, but I want them to be able to hear you just perfect, because with with this team principal role, it was a very, I'll put it in a nice way, interesting way. You got it. There was obviously a disagreement between you and Titan, and it kind of led to that eventually. Titan ended up leaving the Ferrari Academy and not being able to finish off the season there. You took over, and I'm not really gonna get into anything with your disagreement there with Titan, but what I want to get into in terms of me mentioning this is the fact that Ferrari has taken a whole different step. You know, it was under Titan's management not too long ago. They won the championship in Tier 1 with TB. Now you got to finish it off in Tier 2, and you guys won the championship for the first time in F1 Tier 2. And, well, if you include F1.5 as well, you guys didn't have a single one before either. So, I guess my question is, as I wrap that up, with talking a lot about it, what does it do, I guess, for this team as a whole, let alone team, but academy, right? Changing team principals at the end of the season and now shifting your focus to season 11 tier 2, season 10 F1, Formula Endurance now with a brand new tier, more things to focus on. What has the change been like for Ferrari as a whole, as an academy, let alone a team, because it's one of the teams with some of the most biggest expectations in RPL.
Yeah, well, I think certainly last season, I think on reflection, maybe it was a little bit harsh to take away Titan's team principal so quickly, but it was ultimately done because the tier two performances at the time um, weren't as expected because Red Bull were dominating and I think they have won past like sort of 7 seasons in a row. So it was
Yeah, I don't know if you cut out there or finished talking. I was gonna
I'm
say,
sorry, yeah, cut out. No,
okay, good.
yeah, sorry. So yeah, they hadn't won it. They hadn't won. Ferrari hadn't won tier two at all. So I sort of came in to sort of at least take the fight to Red Bull. Um, Maybe tier one was definitely a bit disappointing last season. We were trying out a few drivers, had a few issues here and there, but definitely was pleased enough with tier two in the end, being able to clinch the constructors, not quite the drivers. But yeah, I think this season now, for tier two, tier one, and Formula Endurance. I mean, Formula Endurance is more of just a sort of a trial round just to test drivers and faster cars, hence why Lennon and Minico are in Ferrari. It's more of just a sort of just a I don't know, keep people happy, let people have a go in the Ferrari if they wouldn't normally in their um,
Yeah.
normal tier. But I think for sure this season, this is the one to watch out for. I think we've had a very disappointing start so far in Tier 1. We've been extremely unlucky. Josh had a lag out in Bahrain. Jack couldn't make it to Jeddah, and then we had a driver who was confirmed to race in the Ferrari um, about the Wednesday beforehand. So it was known that they were going to be in the Ferrari, and then they never showed up, weren't answering their phone. So it was a very poor performance in Jeddah all round for the academy. It looks like, full credit to Cookie as well in the Red Bull. He's been absolutely untouchable. But I think we've got a
Yeah.
bit of work to do to sort of get back to where we want to be in Tier 1. But I have obviously full faith in the drivers I've signed. They're good lads. Well, the whole academy are good, to be fair. We all sit in our own little voice channel where we all talk to each other and help each other out and sort of plan the races, and I think it works really well. Obviously, the main focus tonight is Lennon and Knight to try and finally get the first win for Ferrari this season. So yeah,
Yeah, Owen's been on it in this tier. Cookie's been on it in tier 1. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to have to go right for Ferrari to get their way, let alone Alfa Romeo and Haas to score some decent points. I believe if I check my notes correctly, Haas may have some points this season. They do. I think they have quite a few.
yeah.
As
Both,
for...
both got a few. Both
Oh,
Alpha and Half have got a few points. Yeah,
yeah, as for Alpha... They do have some points, yeah, okay. Haas is 6th, Alpha have some couple too, yeah. I was going to say, and fair point made in the chat of the Alfa Romeo of Gecko to be in P2 right now. Fair play right there. We'll get into that a little bit later on. I want to mention yourself, though, because you came up just short of the title in Tier 2. You're now in reserving duties for the team and the academy itself. One, how does that feel? Two, what went into the decision? And three, what impact is this going to have on team principal role now compared to the driving role?
yeah. I've been in Tier 2 for quite a while. I think I've had quite a few second places and third places in the championship overall. Um, so I guess maybe it was like last season was definitely the closest I've been to a title. Um, so it was disappointing, I guess, not to walk away with it. But as discussed at the end of Brazil last season, the right person won it in the end. Um,
Yeah.
but I think for sure now, yeah, the focus is definitely not on driving. I think the people I've signed to Tier 2 are definitely faster and more capable than what I would have been, so they're definitely more useful. But yes, currently the focus is purely on being a team principal, making sure I've got the best drivers, and going from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that aspect of it. You want the best people in the best cars. And I think of Formula Endurance, looking back at it from the first weekend, I think of it in a way where, if there's someone, take for granted, like Minico, you said Minico being in the Ferrari, take for granted if he feels like he's not in the right car or he feels like he needs to be in a better car, there's always that way of moving him, and he can be that guy to prove it in Formula Endurance if someone like Jack or Josh does end up disappointing, and I think that's kind of the way it is. I mean, there were I think 2 guys who made the return in Formula Endurance to RPL on Sunday, and there were 2 new guys who made a start. So it's kind of the middle ground of what F2 used to be in a way. It's not like you're moving up, but you're just proving something. And I kind of like that aspect of it, and I like that you kind of look at it in that way from Minico and giving those guys a chance at Ferrari. The thing I was going to mention is general thoughts for each tier, right? I mean, you have Ferrari, who have a really good lineup in Tier 2 with Jack and Josh. I mean, realistically, Titan said, the previous team principal, that he thinks that's the best lineup of the tier 1 season. Now, as you go 16th fastest, nice job on
Jesus
that.
Christ.
I completely forgot you were racing for a moment too. But I was gonna say with the Ferrari Tier 1 lineup, He said he feels like it's one of the best lineups, and realistically, or the best lineup. I think it's one of the best lineups. Best, maybe not, but in terms of how Ferrari have had a bad start there, you mentioned the constructors' title is maybe a possibility. You probably have to hope for both drivers to be on it, and maybe the Chiller not to do so well in that Red Bull, but to keep himself in it for the whole season. Maybe, I don't know. As for tier 2, you mentioned for you guys how you guys haven't won yet, but you guys have had great pace in both races and just in general, with even the two drivers you have now, and it shows with Knights and Lennon in for tonight. And in Formula Durance, Monaco had a chance to win on Sunday. What is the expectation in terms of finishing place for the Ferrari, the main team in the constructors? And as for Alpha and Haas, to back that up, I guess you could say, what is the ideal finishing spot for Haas and Alfa Romeo? Who are you guys trying to beat or not?
Well, I guess it's the whole reason I was made team principal in the first place. My mentality is I want Ferrari to beat Red Bull. I want to win everything I can, and anything else is a bonus. I think Jack, my go-to principal, is very much he keeps it realistic in the sense that he hasn't got quite as extortionate expectations. But I think the expectations for Alfa and Haas, it's realistically, it's irrelevant where they finish. Like, nobody really cares if, Haas come fifth in the constructors, for example. So I'm not really too concerned about that. My only concern really is to use it as sort of a driver development program almost, where I have people in the
Nice.
people in the Haas and Alfa Romeo who I think maybe deserve the Ferrari but haven't quite got maybe enough to show for it yet. So I would just simply put them in there and see how they do, see if they perform, and then let them sort of develop as a driver. Because I don't really like to I wouldn't really like to sign someone for Ferrari outside of my academy, if that makes sense. I sort of want to
Yeah.
sign someone from Haas or Alfa Romeo and do it that way. So sort of use my academy as like a ladder in its own right. And that's sort of what I'm trying to achieve or trying to build with the academy.
Yeah, I was gonna hit on the thing with Red Bull, in fact, which I kind of found funny because there was a lot of banter about it in the Discord server not too long ago. There was a little bit of controversy between you guys and Red Bull, and I know the main target will always be beat Red Bull, beat Red Bull. They have the better car, and they do have the better car, and I mean that's obviously known. There's no denying that, but the one thing is that you guys ended up having, I guess, and maybe with reserves with loaning, there's a sort of contract for them that's made aware that, hey, if you're going to be loaned out, you can go anywhere but Red Bull. And that was kind of the talking point whenever one of the reserve drivers from Ferrari wanted to be loaned out and raced, and Red Bull was the only spot. What is the rivalry like with Red Bull, and what is the kind of thinking behind that aspect of it? Because obviously you guys want to beat Red Bull, so you got to try everything you can, and as much as people might disagree with that, surely they at least have to look at it and at least understand why it's the case, if it is true on your guys' aspect.
Well, yeah, absolutely. As I said, they are the rivals. I don't set my targets to beat Mercedes or McLaren. I purely want to beat Red Bull, and everything else will fall into place. That's what my mentality. So as I said, I think if we're beating Red Bull, naturally we'll be beating everyone else. So that's why they are the big rivals. They are, the ones with the target on their back. But then again, I think
Car in front of you.
that is sort of Jack's mentality. He's very much that we can never expect a Ferrari to beat a Red Bull because it's such a faster race car and qualifying car. So it's unfair to sort of have that expectation. So I think that's the nice balance I think we have in the academy, where I'm the sort of the optimistic team principal, where I sort of encourage and try and build my academy around trying to achieve perfection, I guess. And Jack is very much more realistic. He sort of keeps it more grounded and keeps it more fair. But yeah, absolutely, the rivalry is absolutely there. I think that's the whole point of. I think what we're doing here, they are ones to beat, and we are the ones who are going to beat them.
Interesting. So we got our final qualifying laps on us. Currently, the bottom 5 is Mythic, Blugagi, Groggerz, Kipu, and FBL. FBL serving that qualifying ban he had last season that he didn't serve. Groggerz, you're about to start your final lap. I'm at least going to let you go through the final chicane in silence, because it's a tough corner. And after that, you want to cover the lap, or do you want me to cover the lap for you, as you're the last one to start a lap here?
You can cover it.
All right, so through turn 1, he's in 4th gear and invalidates. And I think we were a distraction. That's going to be it for him. Oh, no.
As well.
Well, I don't mind you joining us for the end of the Q1 laps. We have Mythic, Blugagi, who's invalidated. He's just going by Mythic, who's about to start a lap. Your teammate might not make the flag if he's not careful here. We'll watch this. If he makes the flag or not. Then focus on who comes across the line. He's got an Aston Martin behind. Mythic claps the wall. He's invalidated. You and Mythic are both out. And that is not good. That's a double Haas elimination. Valkyrie goes 9th fastest. Goes faster and has a better chance of getting in now. Hunted retires. Be Good is on a lap. Button validated. He's in. Who else is on a lap? Shanghai making his return to Tier 2. This time as a reserve, 2/10 down in the first sector. Invade is invalidated. Wavy's on a lap. Term in his return is invalidated as well. So all Term needs is just someone from that bottom 5 not to improve. Kippa comes across the line. Kippa still is last. It's down to Blugagi to knock Term out. And Wavy is going to be 14th, so Wavy is safe. The only one who can make any noise. And that bottom 5 is Blugagi. And Blugagi, on his YouTube channel, made it clear at one point that it was one of his worst races here in a different league about 2 years ago on F121. And he's hoping to redeem himself for this track that haunted him that previous time, going through the final chicane, trying to put everything together. And in only his 2nd star of the season for AlphaTauri, he's going to be into Q2. How about that for Blugagi? So, AMS Turnboy for Alpine in his return. First start in F123 is out of qualifying. That's the big shock, I would say. Wouldn't you say, George?
Yeah, he's normally a very quick one-lap driver. Gakko, though, absolute hero. P2. I feel, yeah,
for you guys, you said.
As I was trying to saying earlier, I think there was a little bit of debate as to who was going to be replacing Alex Bear for this race between Knights and Gakko. I think Knights is a very fast driver, and I think he's more comfortable in Tier 1. Let's say I think he's more just doing Tier 2, which is just sort of a bit of a fun. But I think Gakko is relatively unheard of with respect in Tier 2.
Yeah.
And he was definitely, it was between him and Knights for the Ferrari this weekend. But I did choose Knights as we haven't got a win yet, and I start asserting my dominance a little bit in the championship. So that was ultimately what led me to pick Knights. But yeah, just a shout out to Gakko. He's been very sort of understanding and very patient. He's been practicing really hard. He's really active in Discord. He's been performing really well. So it's big credit to him, big shout out, and I can't wait to sort of give him the opportunity in the Ferrari and let him really sort of show what he's capable of.
So Gecko was definitely the big surprise that session. Props to both Williams getting through this week. First time in full qualifying since it's been reintroduced in RPL. As you may have noticed in that bottom 5 area, Blugagi is also eliminated. When he crossed the line, he must have retired before he ended up crossing the line, and instead it knocked him out of qualifying due to that. So he was fast enough to get through, but due to crashing, that has cost him a chance to compete in Q2. Not good for Blugagi. So that bottom 5 on pace includes an Alpine of Term, FBL, who is making his return, having to serve the qualifying ban that he had, Kipu, Groggerz, and Mythic. And Groggerz, I'm going to keep you here for a little bit, actually, if you don't mind. I'll keep you here for the first laps. And
Yeah,
for the
sure.
reason behind that, if you don't mind, is we didn't get to cover your lap, so why don't you cover a lap of the first driver who's going to come across the line to start a lap, and tell us what this track's about. I mean, there's 4 chicanes here we mentioned in the intro. We mentioned there's 3 DRS zones, and as there is a ton of chicanes, there's a lot of places where people can hit the walls tonight.
Yeah, I think the big thing I've been saying to my drivers before this race, a little sort of pre-race briefing, I guess, is that I think this track is all about patience in the race. There's a lot of places, as you said, you can sort of nick the wall, get slight wing damage, but I think the big thing for sure is track limit penalties. There's a lot of awkward, like sort of exit curbs, or like the last chicane, the first few chicanes where you can easily sort of just step over the white line and get a track limits warning. So I think that'll be the big thing to watch out for in the race.
Shanghai. There we go. How about you cover this? Turn 1, turn 2, here he comes through. I'll let you take over now. A lot of places you can invalidate track limits, you said.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So this turn 3 is the big one as well. You can just get a little bit greedy on the curbs as he hits the wall. Again, another prime example of how it's easy to lose an air plate. This curb here on the left is very easy to spin. It's a very awkward corner. You have to either commit to the curb or miss the curb completely. Straight then, the first DRS zone of the lap, really. The chicane again, the curb on the right is very awkward. You have to commit to it, but also take it in a higher gear than you would expect to avoid spinning, and make sure you don't run too wide to invalidate or get a penalty as he goes deep into the hairpin. And then this big long straight now into the last chicane. Again, it's quite a hard track to overtake at. And I'll explain once his lap is finished. But as you see, he goes into the last chicane, keeps it all, well, invalidates it.
Got it all wrong.
Yeah, so it's quite an awkward track for racing because it's as I'm sort of trying to explain on the lap, that it's very sort of high maintenance. It's very easy to lose the rear end, and sort of you want to sort of make sure you keep as much downforce on the car, make sure you aren't losing the rear end in any of the corners. But ultimately, that means that it'll be even harder to overtake at, and there's not really many heavy braking zones or long straights where you can really sort of maximise DRS or any stride advantage. So it's a very hard balance to find. The balance of having high wings, which you want to run, but then also having low enough wings where you can also overtake. So that will be the big problem in the race, I think, and you may see a few incidents. Hopefully not, but yeah, I think that will be the big issue. So track limits and maybe ambitious overtaking.
Yeah, that's the thing. I noticed this in the Season 9 race here, I want to say it was, when 0-1. There was a lot of people going for overtakes, and, you know, you either lose so much time battling, or you just have to sit behind somebody and hope for the right point to get by them, therefore you don't lose time doing any battling. Gecko comes across the line to go 5th. We saw AMS Knights invalidate, as I had said, ooh, whenever you were speaking about that there. It is really a tricky circuit. One you can easily invalidate, one you can easily get on the power wrong, traction, the walls are close. I mean, there's overtaking, you said, as well, the battling.
Yep.
There is a lot to it.
Of course, you wouldn't have seen either that it is a full wet race. It's going to have
yeah, I heard about that.
I think a 91% chance at the start, but it's meant to dry up towards the end, which could be interesting. And again, strategy will play into it very nicely, hopefully.
So tell us about that. What's that looking like? Because I know it's supposed to be for Q3 some rain as well, as Wavy is still outside the top 10.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Q3. I didn't look because I wasn't sort of too optimistic about getting through because, I mean, to be honest, I've just been on the WRC game all day, so I'm very much not in the F1 sort of muscle memory. But no, yeah, it's going to be a full wet race, full wet to start with probably, and then it's looking like it'll go towards intermediates towards the end. So maybe safety cars, or I think strategy will be the big one. Trying to time the weather change because it can be very unpredictable on this game. So that'll definitely be something to look out for.
Yeah, I know it was Tadpole who mentioned it. I was gonna mention it in just a moment too, but we have so many laps we're looking at because we missed that in Q1, which is okay. I mean, I don't mind that, but um, I was gonna mention it later, and you're exactly right. It's the start as far as he said, and it's Q3. So it's Q3 at some point, meaning it might be a rush to get out there.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know if it'll affect the end of the session or not. Your driver AMS Knights goes fourth fastest with that lap though, but yeah, I don't know how it will affect the end of the session. Uh, if it's the way that Tadpole made it sound, it does sound like it's going to be one of those okay, let's rush to get out there kind of Q3 sessions, and whoever gets the first lap in without having too much issues in the lap, then that'll be probably pole position or whoever starts up there at that point. As for the race, you said a wet start, and it's supposed to dry up at the end, but I don't know if that means it's going to dry up and be dry tires, dry track but no dry tires, or just simply enters as in drying up. I don't know. You know?
I think intermediates, but you never know on this game. It could be like very close. It depends as well on how many safety cars we have. If we have obviously more safety cars, there'll be a higher chance it gets dry towards the end of the race. But no, on the forecast it just says for the minute just wet to enters.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the last time we had a full wet start, or just a wet start at least in Tier 2. I mean, we've had quite a few times where rain does interfere. Usually that ends up at qualifying, and Zatsy's just invalidated his lap to start off. That is absolutely pain for him. I'm going to go on board with Owen with that said now, as we talk about it. But yeah, I look at it in a way where I don't think it will be the worst case scenario with it being a full wet start, but for some of them who didn't really have any plans to put in a wet setup, that's where it's worst case scenario in my opinion.
Hoping that's where I
Go.
struggled a little bit in qualifying. 'Cause I definitely up my wings quite a lot to compensate for the wet weather. But yeah, I think it will be a lot of chaos the first opening laps. Hopefully, I'm not involved in it or any of my drivers. But wet weather around a track like this, where it is so close, and the corners are that sort of medium sort of speed, where it's very, very sort of awkward. I think there will be maybe a lot of argy bargy rubbing his racing. Who knows?
Yeah, so I guess unless the race I missed in Spa, which was round 6 in season 9, was a wet start, which I don't think it was as far as I'm aware, with the clips that I saw at least. This is the first Tier 2 race since I've been here, which goes all the way back to end of July, that we would have a wet start. So
Yeah, I
that
think
being the case, that's crazy to think about how long it's been.
the
I
last
think
one.
Imola was the last time when you won
I think the last one I can think of that had like an
with Tier 2
intermediate
race.
start, not like a full wet start, but intermediate start would have been Suzuka, the season that Tadball won the championship. So
Maybe.
season 7,
I know
season 8,
I know
I think.
Imola was wet at one point, but was it wet at the start when you had won it?
That
Because
was
I know it
tier
was wet.
that was tier 1, and that was towards the end of the race where I came
No,
fourth, I
but
think, in
tier
the Williams.
I know tier 2 was as well at one point wet because Paulo and Sam got podiums in a Haas and an AlphaTauri. So, and
Was it?
that
I
was a
think no,
strategy because of that.
I
That was when
think
you won in the Red Bull round 3.
no, I thought that was a full dry one because there was Make was in the Aston Martin, and he was just being an absolute terrorist and killing everyone. I think it was just a
He was
safety car or
nasty.
something that was. I can't remember. I mean, it might be.
There might have been a safety car. I'd have to ask one of them if it was wet or not. Um, but yeah, I mean, Tadpoles went third fastest. You spoke of Tadpole, AMS Knights retiring from the session, maybe believing he's safe. I mean, look at how close this field is in a sense of it's about to get wet soon at some point. 2 tenths, 2.5 tenths between the top 9 drivers. It's crunch time soon here.
That is pretty impressive. To be fair, actually, I didn't notice that how close it is.
I didn't notice it till too long ago either. And by the way, to correct myself earlier, I said Goggy DNF'd before the line. No, him hitting Term's car was the reason he couldn't compete in this next session. So that's weird. I've not seen that to where a driver will hit someone's car after the flag and then they're not allowed to compete in the next session because the wheel came off. Usually it's a matter of If it's before the line when the checkered flag is out, at least, though. It wasn't the case that time, which is very, very odd to me, at least.
Yeah, that is quite weird.
But I do expect it because it's an EA/Codemasters game. Either way, be good. Full time now in the Alpine. Coming to the pit lane. Who are we having a chance at watching? JTK is 5th right now. We could watch him. Who is on a lap at least besides him in that bottom 5? Zatsy's about to start one. We could watch him. Shanghai is starting one, so we'll watch Shanghai. Because Shanghai needs to get out of this bottom 5. I say bottom 5 because Goggy's already eliminated. He's just not competing in this session. But he made it through on pace, so he is technically in this session if you think about it. As Gecko is 9th, thinking he is safe. And is there any rain on the track right now? I don't see any, but I think we're about to get to that time because a lot of drivers who are top 9 and above who still could get knocked out with those Astons, those Mercedes still there, are
retiring. Yeah. It must be like about to start. That does seem strange why like Gecko would retire.
Well, Shanghai coming through. Sliding on the curb and into the wall! Oh no! That was not good at all. That curb absolutely bit him, and the front wing also was bitten.
Fucking bit off.
Oh. Wow. Oh my. Zatsy's out too. Zatsy's in the top 10.
Oh, wait.
Zatsy's retired. I saw that from Valk, if that's who you were talking about. Invade and Validates.
Sorry, yeah, Valk, yeah. Oh, wait,
yeah, I saw that snap. It's right on the edge of getting wet. I could just tell by the way they're driving and by the way everyone else in the top 10 is retiring. And it's getting close. It's almost here, that rain.
Valk is a frustrating driver because 1 minute she could be like having a very good performance where she's sort of top 4, top 5, doing really well, looking like she could be like a viable driver to sign. And then the next race, she's P15, hitting four times in the race for new wings, sort of thing. She's all over the place. She's very consistent. I did try and sign her to like the Alfa Romeo, I think it was for this TAT season because
Interesting.
I believe that maybe with a bit of guidance and for example being able to sit in the little calls we do where we can talk to each other and sort of help each other out, I think stuff like that would benefit someone like her where she definitely has the pace.
Oh! Wavy has just absolutely kept off this session by spinning out. He was going through it fully in that chicane as it started raining and invalidated, then spun it to put a little extra measure for that. Yeah, you're right about Valk. What I was gonna add, just if you don't mind, I was gonna say is this is the end of qualifying now, with just a minute left. There's no way anyone improves. What I was gonna say is you're right about that because this race 2 seasons ago, she got into a collision with Grandpa, who was on pole position for that race for you guys at Ferrari, and the interesting thing I think back of in that race is just the fact that Valk with extremely good pace was probably on for her first podium at the time. She got 1 podium since, but it's the fact of her RPL career in Tier 2, even though she's got wins in F2, the career in Tier 2 at least has been a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's either great pace and taken out through no fault of her own, or takes herself out through fault of her own, like she did with the collision with Grandpa. And she was overtaking Grandpa, I believe, or battling with Grandpa, for what was going to be the podium in that race. And that's what cost her, and you're exactly right about that. And the interesting thing I found, as it's just absolutely coming down the rain, is now she crossed the line to complete her lap, and it just started raining right after that. And she knocked Zatsy out, who's P11 once again.
Yeah, she was very lucky. She was just timed it perfectly. So fair play.
Really did.
Got it done.
Really did. All Mercedes power cars are out of this session. And Wavy. Oh, okay.
The pits.
I don't know if he's doing that on purpose or not, but he gave us a little bit of action. And you know what? He's retiring from the session because he's out of qualifying. So if he wants to score points tonight for Mercedes for the first time ever, he's never scored points for this team. He will have to find a way
from
outside the top 10. Yeah, he's not scored points this season. He's not scored points in Mercedes as a whole. He said
Mercedes can do
he
what.
said that's the one top team he's never scored points with, and I was like, I can't believe that. And Owen scored
I
all
was
their
literally.
points.
I was gonna text him before this race and say like a credit. I was looking at lineups or whatever. I saw him in Mercedes again. Obviously, he signed, and I was gonna text him and say like, well done on him to like getting a decent seat and being secure in the academy
Yeah,
and doing
yeah,
well. But bloody hell, I thought
yeah. Zatsy's out, Wavy's out, Invade is out, Shanghai is out. That's two Williams, and the other two cars are Mercedes and Aston Martin, and it's all Mercedes power cars in that bottom five area, as well as Blue Goggy, who was previously out but made it in through pace and was very unlucky with Term DNF in there. This is going to be a race to get out here. We got two McLarens in this session, two Ferraris, and two Red Bulls as well involved in Q3. I don't mind
I
if you
think
stay here to join us for this session.
yeah. I mean, I'll jump out sort of towards the end for the race, but yeah. I was just
Perfectly
to
fine.
say, I think Wavy sort of falls very much into the same category as Valk, where they both have very decent pace, and they're definitely fast enough for the cars they're in. It's just the issue of they're both extremely inconsistent, and it's just like as a team principal, you can't help but sort of not want to sign them to a seat. Maybe their pace reflects purely because of that, and it's definitely for Wavy been a big hurdle to get over. He's been in RPL for quite a few seasons now, and I've sort of raced against him in Tier 2 since I first started in Tier 2. Um,
Yeah.
and it's sort of a hurt. Like he's always been near enough the same pace as me, to be fair. And that's not me. That's not
That's
me trying
fair.
to say that I'm very quick or whatever. But he's always had like sort of very respectable pace, but just never sort of had the
Ooh.
consistency to back it up.
I guess Tadpole may have just paused right there, and now he's getting a little battle here with the Ferrari. This is getting interesting because they want to be the first driver out on track because they know these conditions are going to get worse. I just double checked, by the way, with both drivers who got a podium in that race at Imola. It was wet at the end, not wet at the start. So this makes perfect sense now as to why at least in some wet conditions, Sam Steed and Polo got a podium in those bottom fielded cars
Oh,
in
I
that
think
race.
yeah, I remember
So
now. Yeah, like the last
so
few
this
laps.
must
Yeah,
be the first wet start, at least of this game cycle for tier 2 at least. I know tier
yeah,
1
for
has
sure.
had one because they had Monza and stuff, but now everyone is going to cross the line to start their laps. It was Lennon the first one to start a lap. Bunkers the last one on the circuit right now. We're going to see how everybody does. We'll cover the laps, but for my top 3, I'm going to have to give it in no particular order: Lennon, Hunted, and Tadpole. I do think if anyone can sneak in there, though, I am doubting Red Bull, by the way. I think it can be Gecko, as he's been absolutely on it this session and these qualifying sessions so far. I have to see. I have to see what happens. Chat, get your predictions in now. Either way, if it doesn't get worse, we'll have to find out if anyone can go for a second go. Lennon coming through the chicane. It's a lot easier to take in the wet, it must be said, because it's easier to keep your car in a straight line and just perpetuate your car through that type of corner, that chicane. The hairpin depends on how late you want to brake, really. With it being the wet conditions, though, a lot more battling in that area, I would say, in terms of other areas. You don't really get more battling in any areas except for that area when it comes to the wet. Now, the final chicane, the Wall of Champions, an easy place to invalidate. Lennon will be the first one to come across the line. The McLaren almost to the wall in the background. Lennon, 19.3. Next across the line was the McLaren of Tadpole, who invalidated, but Hunted is only second fastest. Can't get pole off of Lennon. AMS Nikes comes across third, and Owen intercepts pole off Lennon. So Owen for Mercedes is currently going to be on pole. Be Good is fifth. The conditions don't look so great right now. JTK, 8th place for them. Tadpole invalidated this and the next lap, so that is absolutely treacherous, as Bonkers had to go in and come back out. Well, Groggerz, if it doesn't get worse, you think this is going to be our top 3, or do you think anything changes?
Um, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I think normally what I do for qualifying in the wet is I fuel for like 3 or 4 flying laps. So it'd be interesting to see if any drivers have done that, 'cause I certainly feel like it's best so you can build up to a fast lap. So I think maybe we might see for the next 2 or 3 laps, like I know, for example, Owen is charging his battery to go again, so maybe there'll be a few other drivers doing that. So I
Yeah,
think maybe
I can see right now.
I think Knight is maybe a little further off than where he'd like to be.
Let's see if he's on another one. He might be. He's coming
But
across the line now. Gecko is fourth fastest for Alfa Romeo. What can AMS Knights do? Fourth fastest. Takes that back.
so he run out of
Sorry about
the
that.
RS towards the end. But yeah, I think maybe yeah, it's very close between the top three. Depending on the conditions, sort of, is it stays how it is now? Yeah, obviously, it'll be very close. As Hunter is starting another lap, I think. Yeah, he'll be going on to the next
Yep.
lap.
There we go. Bunkers too for Red Bull. See what they do. I mean, two favorites into the season for sure. Bunkers hasn't raced, and Red Bull let alone race in general since the season 9 round 11 finale at Brazil. Purple in the first sector. I don't know how true that is, but at least from the lap time it looked like it was off compared to what the top guys were doing. And I didn't really expect Owen to be up there. I guess he must have just found something. I mean, I would say he's decent in these conditions in most cases, but he really must have found something on that lap because he was not one of the first 4 or 5 guys. He was definitely either maybe fifth at best, but sixth or seventh in those guys in terms of track position on who was where when the laps had started. So far this season, we've had a Ferrari on pole in Stenner in Brazil because of full qualifying. Hunted last week, and we could be getting a third different team this week with Owen, which is very interesting. And it would be the fourth different team in the last 4 rounds because Hunted was on pole for Red Bull in the season finale at Brazil. Here comes the Red Bull of Bonkers to possibly find a way to get a Red Bull back on pole. Is he going to do it? No. But that lap, considering how much later it was than the rest of the pack, is pretty good, being fourth fastest.
Perhaps that indicates that the weather is staying relatively the same as to what it was at the start of the session.
Yeah, 2/10 for Gecko. That's a fair play then. You mentioned that. Maybe it was going to get inters and then just stay at the same period. I mean, it's not raining as hard as it once was. Gecko had a very major tank slapper there coming into what would have been the DRS zone. Obviously, DRS is disabled, but that may affect his lap. We see a couple more wiggles from Gecko. The field from first to sixth in his area is quite close with 4/10, and Gecko's still up on the time. He's just not finding as much, though, with that little slide we saw earlier. What difference is that going to make? And you know what? This may not be it for the top 3. So we're not going to sit here and say Owen's on pole just yet because although he set a good lap, he's just looking to make it 4 different teams in the last 4 rounds. And 3 of the first 3 rounds with different teams. Here comes Gecko. A little wide there in the chicane. It was a little too deep, but he should find some time still as long as he's not made any other mistakes. Comes across the line. He lost a lot of time in that last sector. So, although that tank slapper did hurt him, it didn't hurt him as bad as this one did for sure. And that's not good for him. But like you said, you still got another chance, though, with these guys proving that the track is not really digressed in any way to where you can't improve at all. So I think that's the good thing.
Yeah, I think hopefully some of the drivers have put in their fuel for a few laps because I think that's definitely where they'll find more lap times. I think it's in these conditions where they definitely wouldn't have practiced in them. It'll be very hard for them just to sort of go out, do 1 lap, bang, put it on pole. I think it would definitely be easier to sort of build up to it. I think naturally that would be the fastest way or the best way to do it. But who knows? Some drivers like to sort of do 1 lap sort of thing, and that's how they like to go about things. Other drivers like myself like to sort of build up to it.
All right, Tadpole is going to come across the line for McLaren now. McLaren had a pole Hunted last week. Tadpole's going to set himself 9th fastest. So the sets are sight for him that he needs to be up there toward his teammate. However, if the track is at least the same, He's at least got another go at it this time around. There's other drivers also coming across the line for laps. We'll go to pole man currently, Owen, who is up by 0.3 right now and could still go faster. You could see the rain, not as heavy as before when Owen set this first lap. That was pole position. Can we see a driver get into the 18s? Owen's going to be the one to do it, and he's clear of the pack by an absolute mile. 0.7 that gap between him and the next closest driver. Next is JTK coming across the line 0.3 up on the time. He was 2 seconds down on the first lap. Now he's only a second down on the second lap. Wow. I mean, that lap is pretty good. And you know what? If it's that good, surely we're going to see others do the same. And now here comes Lennon, who is going to be second fastest, 0.3 off, a little slower than the first go. How about Hunted, who's down by 0.3? Next across the line will be Tadpole, up by 0.4, trying to avoid being 10th on the timing boards right now. He will go 7th fastest, so he's finding some time for McLaren. AMS Knights is finding some time for Ferrari to make it 3rd fastest. A Ferrari 2-3, so that's a good look for them. How about Valkyrie, who's invalidated? Has she invalidated this in next lap? Yes, she has. So she's going to have to make it around for one more go. The Red Bull comes across the line of Bonkers. We'll watch him as they come for their final laps. Let's see. Zatsy said he missed out a little bit on the Q3 lap. It was very unfortunate to see, I must say. Had a decent bit of time in there. Owens retired from the session. That's in the pit lane. He believes he's comfortable with that lap, even if it's pole or not. Bonkers is up. We'll go here to the hairpin area to watch what he's going to do and then switch to the drivers coming across the line. We got some predictions from Josh H. We had some predictions from Invade in the chat. And Reese wondering where you got this pace from. I know. I mean, you know, no one's going to assume straight away that he's hacking. But I must say, you know, the improvement in pace just shows you switch to PC, there's something with those curbing, something with the frames per second that you can just find some time with and just get more comfortable with. Bonkers, though, not comfortable with that hairpin, absolutely sliding the rears right there, and it's going to be troublesome for him because he will get one more lap in, but he has to make sure he makes it through the chicane just okay. In order to get this lap in, we have drivers coming across the line. More are coming. Tadpole's next. He's going to start one. This is your last chance to start a lap. If you want to have a chance for pole, now is the time to cross the line and to get something in. Valkyrie started a lap. The Red Bull of Bonkers couldn't go faster. His lap is coming up next. AMS Knights couldn't go faster. Next is Hunted, who was down, still down, but at least has a chance for one more. And now here they come for the final laps and the final time. Checker flag waving. All right. We'll let you go in a moment here, Groggerz, but I will say before we do, in case you go in between these laps, good luck in the race.
Thank you. I think I'm going to need it.
I agree. All right. Be good. Full time for Alpine now. Was up on the grid quite well last week. 3rd place, a podium in his first start. How about a Formula Endurance winner? What can he do for qualifying? Comes across the line, improves a little bit, but couldn't improve any places. 9th for him. Gecko retires in the pits. 6th place for him for Alfa Romeo. What a standout this session, but it's not enough to improve any places. The Aston Martin of Valkyrie is next. She's down on the time. She's not going to improve unless something drastic changes in the final sector. Bonkers is into the pits and almost ran into Valkyrie. Next across the line is AMS Knights. Come into the pits. Hunted next across the line. Hunted does not come up into the pits. Now it's up to him and Tadpole. Hunted is sliding. Hunted is across the line but can't make anything from it. Tadpole is next. Can Tadpole beat anything in front of him? No. Owen, who started the session on pole position and started the season with 2 wins, hasn't had a pole to his name yet, but now he can say he does. The 4th different team in the last 4 races to take pole, Mercedes, are back on pole position just like they've been back on top for these wins. They have got pole position with Owen in Canada.
Okay, thank you for having me. See you later.
Right, enjoy, man. Good luck. We'll watch you in the race, and we'll see how you do. Very good for Groggerz to represent Ferrari tonight. Second and third on the grid, they will start. They have a lot of work to do if they want to get to Owen because the gap is 3/10 of the top there. Owen, Lennon, and Knight's your top three. Then you have Hunted, Bonkers in his return. Gecko, the standout of the session by a country mile. Tadpole 7th. JTK 8th for Red Bull. Tantalizingly close with Be Good, who's just behind. And Valkyrie in the Aston Martin, 10th place. If you're wondering for tonight's strategy for the race, here is the things to look out for in terms of the strategy. If any drivers end up having to go to dry tires due to it drying up at the end, soft tires are ideal for 8 or less laps. If it's dry for more than 8 laps, most of those drivers will likely go to the mediums. But because of the rain we see right now, we won't likely see that used. However, a normal pit stop loss in the dry is 17 seconds, excuse me. So we will focus and maybe dot that down to maybe 18 seconds, maybe 19, with it being a full wet one. And you gain 14% back in the pit lane. I don't expect a lot of ERS to be used in this race, but man, if you're in a battle and you're on a straight, you might as well use it. Won't be lost as much. We'll see what happens. But get your predictions in now for the race as we're about to head 5 lights here in just a moment. We have some drivers rooting for some in the chat. We have some drivers interacting because of the race on our hands, which we're about to kick off in just a moment here. Let's see what happens. Sounded like I had a screen freeze with Haunted's lap there at the end of Q3. I didn't know what he was going to do. I don't know if he was going to bend in the wall or not because of that. Here come the 5 red lights for the Canadian Grand Prix. It's a wet one. Lights out. Away we go. Owen gets an okay start, but Lennon got a better one. Lennon got off the line much better, and Owen slides as well. And they're absolutely going to be tiptoeing their way here through 2, 3, and 4. But now Owen has a little bit of a challenge for the race lead. Lennon is side by side with Owen. They continue to duel it out as they head here for the second chicane. Side by side. You don't usually see it there. But Lennon takes the lead of the race. Now, side by side between Hunted and Knights. Gecko's there to follow. And the path is Invade and JTK now trading spots. And everyone trying to figure themselves out here in the back of the field as they now go side by side here with Term and Goggy, who collided earlier. And now off the track was the Williams of Shanghai, as Gecko's now being overtaken. Groggerz is in a battle here at the back of the field. How about 3 wide in these wet conditions? Wavy's going to back out of it. That was absolutely treacherizing. It's just absolutely pissing it down at the start. Everybody is just trying to find what line they want to take and trying to find. Oh, there we have a collision. When Zatsy's around. Zatsy's found his way to the grass and he's collided with another driver and now he's got damage. And Zatsy rejoined in maybe an unsafe manner, but cost himself in the process. The problem with Zatsy with what happened there is you just can't see off the start. We're going to see who gained how much. But everybody except for one driver is on the wet tires. Kipu's now falling places. He's got FBL behind. He underfueled right here. Likely due to the rain. JTK is following Turnboy. It's just everybody is so close together. And the problem is you can't tell who's going to do what on these starts with what's going on with these wet conditions. I think most of the field was safe right there. Most of the field was cautious, and rightfully so. But not many people were costed by it, luckily. Zatsy being the main one who pits, though. And we're going to focus on at some point in this race, if it does get dry, like the driver said, AMS Knights on these intermediate tires. How will this gamble pay off? All right, here we go. We got a pack of cars. Mythic, Goggy, Turnboy, JTK. Goggy going to send it up the inside. Mythic's going to go deep into the corner. And Turnboy's going to take advantage of both. He's going to be side by side on the exit of the corner where they continue to go side by side. Yellow flags to the back of the field. That is for Kipu and the AlphaTauri. Kipu has had a malfunction in the back and some issues with it, but now Turnboy gets Goggy as JTK is now threatening Mythic. Side by side of the chicane, Mythic backs out but picks up a penalty. Some nice battling right there. It's cost them some time, but they have figured themselves out single file now due to that, which is probably the good thing for them. How does Lennon deal with this pressure being in the race lead? Lennon's been in contention for all of the time, or for a win all the times he's been racing for Ferrari. And now, tonight in the wet conditions, which some of these drivers have never seen in RPL, we'll see how they handle it. JTK is out of this race, and that's a collision potentially at that area. His car is absolutely stranded. It's almost in half, and he's out of this race, bringing out a safety car. Full safety car. Oh dear. So with the way he ended off last season, this is not the way JTK would have wanted it to go for his reappearance in Red Bull. I don't know what happened, if it was a collision with another driver, he just got loose in that area. I want to go back to Twitch clips and see if he was near anybody in that time and place. We'll see if anyone comes in the pits. I don't think anyone will, though. Unless people are going to go for some gambles. Tadpole is in. JTK calls it good night. It looks like the only one in the top 12 area coming in is Tadpole. And Tadpole has gotten some podiums here based on some interesting scenarios here, it must be said. Alright, so I figured out what has happened here, I believe. JTK lost it on his own in that area. So, we will watch any section really for the drivers, with it being a tricky section either to get on the power or just in general here, because even on the wet tires, with it being monsoon conditions, I don't think all of them can really handle it. And it's no backlash to any of them, but JTK being out of the race is going to be hard to do it here, with that being said. Not going to be as easy to get on the power. We'll see what happens. Tadpole is on the intermediate tires. He's the first one taking a gamble in terms of switching tires. I mean, AMS Knights took a gamble by starting on inters, but he didn't switch tires. That's the difference. But they're both gambling still, regardless. We'll see if anybody pits this time around. I doubt it, because they'll lose more track position than Tadpole lost. But at least Tadpole is 14th and ahead of some of his competitors here. We'll see how it works out, though. Blue Goggy is in for AlphaTauri. Wavy is in as well. And we'll see if they have damage or what they're going to do. Blue Goggy is going to inners. Wavy Knife is going to inners. Maybe it's time for inners and they see it before the rest of the field does. Term says Term will finish the race. Well, I will say, and no offense meaning to be taken from it, but in the F2 days, that was not as common. The end of the game cycle, I think it was a little more common. And I think I can see that happening tonight. And a return for Alpine. Let's see how many places he's gained as well as the rest of the drivers. I meant to check that, but I never ended up getting to it. Remember, these are not full positions with how much they've actually gained, because some had pitted for inners. This is not basically from the time before the safety car, so it's kind of excluding that in a way. It's misrepresentative, we'll call it. 4 for Invade, 2 for Valkyrie, 2 for Be Good, 1 for Lennon, 6 for Term, 6 for Mythic, 6 for Groggerz, 6 for FBL, and 3 for Kipu. Obviously, the big losers from that become Zatsy, clearly. Wavy and Goggy pitted, so we can't really say they're the losers, but definitely losers in terms of places, maybe not their race. Term says his theory is putting Inters now is dumb because they won't make it to the dry. Interesting. Well, maybe drivers are feeling that it's going to completely dry up. It's interesting with it being a mystery, but now, when do they go pedal to the metal here on the restart? Lennon the leader, Owen behind. When does he smash that gas? It's going to be time too soon. He's just waiting on the right time. We got some people maybe trying to think of going side by side under the safety car. You can't really do that. But how late does Lennon keep it? Everyone just stacking up in the background, expecting him to go. Be Good's into the pit lane, believing it's time for Inters. But now Lennon is back on the gas, and here we go once again. Some position swap due to the stack up in the field, but he left it very late. And now he got yellow flags to back the grid for someone picking up damage. That's in this area. Now, Turn Boy, AMS Knights, a collision at Turn 1. And the exit of as well with Turn 2, but now we got everybody just stacking up, trying to give places back, because if they don't, they're going to get 5 seconds for it. AMS Term has left the session now. Here's the AlphaTauri Blue Goggy. Term is losing places due to leaving this session. We'll see who got a penalty from that, by the way. If anybody. I think it was Term, the one who did. He must have cut the corner. Or at least been forced off there and hit Knights. But that was the result of that, as Tadpole is now going side by side with Valkyrie. Dives up the inside, goes through, late lunge, sends it, gets the place. Wavy trades spots with Term. Zatsy and Kipu come to blows. As Wavy picks up a penalty, as Zatsy gets the place. It's all kicking off here in the restart, because it's still majorly wet, regardless of if drivers think it's enough for the Inters. I mean, let's see how it plays a factor. But Blue Goggy right now for AlphaTauri is currently running in the points on intermediate tires. And I don't know if that was front wing being broken up or in the air or not. But, all right, Term is not joining back. With Goggy being in the points for AlphaTauri, they've not had points in a full season now. Round 3, Austria was the last time they did. It was round 3 at this point of last season. And that's when they last scored points. So we'll find out what happens. Because his last points finished, Blue Goggy, you'd have to go all the way back to the Season 9 Round 11 race in Brazil, the finale, where that was also Bonker's last race. How about Blue Goggy on fresher tires? Going to dive it up the inside, going to go for it. Groggerz, his previous team principal, giving a little ease to those on the Inters. Goggy gets through. And Goggy could very well be in prime position here once it becomes the Inter period. His last podium in RPL comes at Saudi Arabia. We returned there this season. FBL's now around. And that's been contact with Wavy, I think. He's got damage for sure. He's going to have to repair that front end plate that he damaged. Tadpole gets through on Bunkers. In is Owen. Gecko's in as well. Hunted remains out there. And now Groggerz is in, but hits the bollard. We'll see what they do on those Inter tires. It seems to be the time, but are they too late compared to Tadpole, Wavy, Blue Goggy, and maybe even AMS Knights, who had that collision there on the restart? You know, it's really a big what if for AMS Knights, because he had the track position over Tadpole, but he really got screwed on the restart when, I guess, Term may have got hit into Knights. I'm not sure what happened there. Either way, Blue Goggy is now heating up Invade for the place. A little bit of contact made between them. A little bit of argy-bargy, shoving back and forth. But Blue Goggy excels on the power on the outside line to get the place here for 5th. Now AMS Knights with Mythic is also playing a little bit of a factor here. Mythic, the lowest driver still on wet tires on the racetrack, is getting overtaken right there. It seems to be time for Inters, but in the process of that, Owen may get the undercut here in Lennon. Now you have Be Good all over the back of Mythic. Lennon is finally into the pit lane. Hunted's in. And Hunted speeds. Hunted is almost stopped the pit lane because of how much he sped. Bonkers also in for Red Bull. Blue Goggy stays out and will be on the net podium. Now, the last time he was running on podium on a strategic call that was in his favor was in Saudi in that same season that he got a podium in season 7. We return to Saudi later on this season, and we'll see if Blue Goggy can redeem himself a little bit later. Be Good also on the back of Owen right now. This is crucial places now as Lennon is ahead of Knights, but Owen is still right there in the thick of things. Look at how much closer he is now that he got the undercut. Wavy is with Invade now for 3rd place, and he's the only one left in these wet tires. So now the track is definitely got drier enough for inters, and Invade has definitely got this all wrong. It's not drastically changed, but it's slowly changed, and so many could see it before the rest. Blue Goggy pitted under the safety car. How about Lennon going for a move on Invade? In the background, you got AMS Knights and Owen. No, but see, the thing is, Goggy, Tadpole, Wavy, and you could maybe even say, in a way, Be Good, as well as AMS Knights, saw it all before they did. Especially AMS Knights, but he got screwed. He was the one who came off worse from this because of the incident with Term. And even AMS Knights is in because of potential contact or change of tires. Yeah, this is a front wing. This is a front wing being changed. This is not good for him. Wavy now could play a factor for his teammate with Lennon being the car next behind him before Owen catches up. I get why you'd want a safety car there, Invade, but I don't think it worked out for you all that well. Does Lennon throw up one up the inside? No. Wavy gonna play a big factor for the teammate, even if he's going at his own pace. He is making sure that Owen gets at least within a 1-second buffer. Not for DRS yet, but for more so a chance at Lennon. You can just see Lennon right there once Wavy is overtaken, or been overtaken by him. And now I think Wavy will let Owen go, and he does that. And he is within that 1-second buffer, it looks to be. So prime position here for Owen. Now everybody in the field is just about spread out, except for a couple of people. Mythic's in a little battle with Shanghai for 13th. Mythic has a penalty, and 4-car battle for 3rd place now. On the route to catch Blue Goggy, who has done exactly what Sam Steed did in terms of strategy round number 3 2 seasons ago to get AlphaTauri, the worst car in this game, a podium. It's their only podium in this game cycle to this date still. And you can see Lennon's running at fast pace. Blue Goggy needs himself to keep up this pace for AlphaTauri. We'll see how that all works. There's a car who's entered the pit lane. We'll see who that was. Either way, I'm going to get AMS Term and invite back. I will do that now. Oh, let's invite him to game. We got a 3-car battle in our hands. Be Good off the road. Gecko made contact. And Be Good comes out behind Gecko. Wavy is there as well. He's just ahead of these guys, and he's losing a bunch of time to Owen, in fact. Now, what does he do in pursuit of Wavy Gecko? This is the question now. How does he handle this? He's been very fast in these wet conditions in qualifying. He's been very fast in general in qualifying. But can he convert this to the race for Alfa Romeo? You got AMS Knights trading places with Barn and Shanghai. FBL getting ahead of Term. And now Gecko just on the path of Wavy. Now gets the traction side by side here. They touch! They touch! Wavy's out of this race! That's going to bring out the safety car. The safety car's been deployed, and while that happened, Lennon got by Blue Goggy. Kippu's got a drive-through for speeding under the safety car. That's been very harsh on him. Usually that does not come right away, but he must have been really speeding and could not get down his pace. Or he only had a limited amount of time to get it back under. But an absolute crushing end to Wavy's race. Still, to start the season, he has no points at all for Mercedes. What an absolute shame for him. Especially with how he started out that return. He had the points in Brazil, the points in Mexico, for Aston Martin. What is happening now to him in that top car? It's not his fault, the collision, but he lost so much pace to Owen, though, to where Gecko got too eager and spun him out. Oh, wow. Yeah, Gecko and Wavy are not happy at each other. I cannot say on stream what they have said, but Be Good is in. Tadpole is in. This is for fresh inters. And Tadpole is going to come out in between Lennon and Blue Goggy. So this is interestingly worked out for him. Be Good coming out of the pit lane. He'll be further behind. AMS Term has joined back the session as well. Second safety car of this race. First full safety car of the season happened in this race. Be Good comes out 9th. Kippu's in. Shanghai is in. FBL is in his return. It's an absolute crushing end of Wavy's race. I can't believe it. I really can't. I don't understand why Gecko was going for that on the right side of his car. And I get why he was going for the move, but as much as Wavy pinched him, Gecko hung it on his right rear and spun him out. And you just can't do that. I mean, Wavy was complaining about the lack of patience from Gecko, but I think Gecko just moved a little over too much, and that caused the incident. So it's really unfortunate that that happened, but resulted in second retirement. And two big cars are out of this race. So how is this going to play into this race? You still have some big teams left, but two of those big teams out of this race. One was due to a self-spin. One was due to contact. Just a lot to digest. So Gecko feels he had nowhere to go. Got a fat squeeze there. Maybe, I guess. I don't know. I'd have to digest it a little bit more to see the full incident myself. But just from a live point of view, the only way I can really put that is on Gecko. And I don't think it's only on Gecko, though. I think Wavy pinched him a little bit too much, too. But is Gecko able to go to the right anymore becomes my question. And I don't know. I mean, you'll have to tell me. Blue Goggy has spun and he's binned it. He's hit the wall under the safety car. His big chance of running toward a top 5 position in this race has just come undone. And he's having to retake those places that were legal for those guys to take. I'm going to watch the replay from this point of view. With Wavy and Gecko. Wavy does squeeze a little, but I think that's on Gecko. I don't think he squeezed drastically. Yeah, this is mainly on Gecko. Very unfortunate end of Wavy's race. Just taken out through no fault of his own. Safety cars in this lap. As Blue Goggy did Bennett. We're now going to see how can he recharge his way through the field. Does he have to pit due to the damage? Does that throwing maybe kind of keep it intact a little bit to make him keep it stable? We'll find out. Safety car's in. Back on the gas. Lennon goes in this race lead, and he's off and away. Kippu pits though. Tadpole's in second, Owen followed in third, and now Gecko in fourth, who has a penalty in this race, and they all are single file except for the ones who are duking it out and trying to find the places. AMS Knights is one of them. Zatsy's in the mix of things. How about Hunted as well here? They're trying to go 3 wide here. Zatsy getting swarmed up. Has Hunted for company. AMS Knights gets the place. How about Hunted trying to conquer on past? Hunted gonna try the left side, gonna go diving down the inside. They touch! They touch! And Hunted's almost around. But now Hunted gonna push Zatsy along, gonna try to find a way past. AMS Term is now being overtaken and swarmed up at the back of the field. How about Hunted as well? Still in this battle. Oh, there's a car going off. That's Blue Goggy. There may have been contact. I know they were side by side there just a moment earlier, but Hunted has now finally got Zatsy. Oh, Blue Goggy wheel to wheel right here, and now it's B-Good who's been spun around from it. B-Good's now had a collision with Mythic. And B-Good reset right there because he was stuck. That may be a penalty, but FBL and Mythic are now losing places as Gecko picks up another penalty. Blue Goggy's now in more trouble with that front wing damage he picked up earlier because now he's been overtaken for 8th place and could now be overtaken for 9th. Here's Zatsy on Mythic. Zatsy throws right up the inside. Mythic gonna have the right side for turn number 2, but Mythic has to back out of that place and gives it up to Invade. He's now wheel to wheel with him out of the corner. Invade turns on the battery and keeps the place because of it. AMS Turnboy's through. AMS Turnboy seems to have a lot of pace, a lot more power here than Invade does right now. Look at the traction he can get. FBL has got Mythic, also Hunted getting Blue Goggy. That damage will definitely affect Blue Goggy. You can't see much of it visibly, but it is lime green. He definitely hit the wall when that happened. He's got some of it. It's affecting him now. Zatsy's now using the battery. Zatsy was thinking of setting up the inside, but he rear locked, and now almost gonna get hit from the Alpine of Term, who sends it. Term absolutely late on the brakes, but can't get through an Invade, and now a front wing being broken up, and that's part of an in play going in the air. Groggerz has now got Valk. We collided with last week on the last lap at Texas. Luckily getting that place there. Valk comes into the pits. She might have been the one breaking the front wing, but Zatsy gets Blue Goggy. Now, what can Blue Goggy and Invade do to heat up the pressure on Zatsy? You saw a slide there into the back of the Williams was Blue Goggy. Now sliding out of the corner. Invade there to pounce. Term also in the thick of things. What does he do? But as Valk pits, now up to the teammate for Aston Martin to score their first points of the season, potentially. Invade's gonna send it from a little too deep and gets a penalty. Why? That was way too late. Now, the switchback is on offer. Here we go. Has to yield right there to back out of it. Hunted picks up a penalty, and now he's charging on a previous championship rival, Groggerz. Round the outside. And he's going to switcheroo on the championship rival. Do they come together out of the corner? No, they keep it clean. And in fact, what a nice move. Oh, contact! Term and Invade. Trade blows, and now in Term has received damage in the barrier from that as well. Invade now coming on Blue Goggy. Invade gets the place. He excels past now. It's FBL's chance to do the same. AMS Turnboy, who picked up damage there, pits. Now here's FBL on the outside line. Inside line for the next corner he'll have. He takes advantage of Blue Goggy, muscles his way past. Now without contact though, but now he has taken over 11th place in net P10. As Born in Shanghai outside the points picks up a penalty. A lot of drivers you notice have underfueled, so we'll make sure we take note of that later. The gap between the leaders, though, is still 5/10. The gap remains not in a comfortable area for Lennon, but in a more comfortable area for Tadpole to chase down the race leader. and many, many penalties throughout the last couple of minutes being picked up from multiple drivers. We have 7 different ones of the 18 remaining in this race with a penalty alongside their name, as Be Good is going to send it. Rear locks the brakes and almost goes spinning, and he's got a tap from FPL, which allows him to stay in front. And now FPL's been spun by Blue Goggy. It's a car park. It's a car park between the 3 at the hairpin, and now they have all got straight and going once again. The wet conditions absolutely being treacherous for these drivers here in the midfield. But now the only battle within a second and closing range is now the race lead, settled between Tadpole and Lennon. No DRS going to be enabled anytime soon until this track dries up enough for it. They said it would dry up toward the end. Looks like could be the case still, but that may be only what Tadpole could hope for here to have a chance for the race win. Gecko lags out of the session from P5 as Term got Kippu there right before that. I will invite Gecko back. He is back in. Goggy is still close to Mythic now for 12th. Knights with Gecko because he's joined back the session. And Tadpole's gaining that gap down. Tadpole is really gaining that gap down. Tadpole for Alpine has been in contention here for quite a few podiums, but he's not been anywhere of winning contention since the Red Bull days when he was winning a championship for them. So you have to wonder, is this his chance here to get a podium? Is this his chance here to get a win? He's already had a podium quite a bit for Alpine. He got an Alpine podium here the last time we raced here in Canada. But now it's a chance for a race win, and we'll find out how that fares as AMS Turnboy picks up the fastest lap, showing that this track is improving. And Gecko has retired from the session after joining back. Oh my word. What has happened with him? I don't think he's crashed out. I think because he's rejoined the session, the game has retired him. So that glitch has affected someone else once again. You know, it must be said we had no DNFs last week, and now we're going to 3 DNFs, and all three of them being due to different reasons. Be Good gains the place back for 9th on Invade here. Finding his limits because he's very close to the wall of champions right here. AMS Knights as well, close with Hunted. Blue Goggy with a penalty. We're past halfway. FBL, Kippu, AMS, Term all picked up penalties there at once. We're now in 9 different drivers to have penalties in this race thus far. If you'd like to tune into the action the next couple weeks here in RPL, or sorry, the next races this weekend, excuse me. Hold on. Side by side, Mythic and Valk. That got close. Mythic had to back out of it as FBL got Valk and Mythic there. No more races this year after this weekend. So the next couple races this weekend for Formula Endurance and Formula 1. Formula Endurance on Sunday at 7 UK is at the Zandvoort circuit, and Formula 1 Tier 1 is at Australia for the final time in 2023. Tier 1, 8 UK time. Be Good got Zatsy. You can't really see those cars because of how much more wetter it is than the qualifying started, and how much more darker it is as Hunted gets 5th on AMS Knights. Now you got Valk and FBL here for 12th. Also battling it out. Well, I think Gecko's got a reason to be frustrated for that one. He's expressed his displeasure with this game in the chat, and I cannot blame him one bit. Born in Shanghai, penalty. That's toward the back of the field. Tadpole still is keeping a close gap, though, for this race lead. I mean, Owen's kept a consistent gap to these guys. Third place here, and he's 3 seconds back. But Tadpole's doing what he needs to here. And they will be pitting at some point, I'm sure. With, you could see their MFDs up on the side with that blue arrow. Oh, Be Good trying to punt Groggerz to get by here, it looks like. Groggerz gonna pinch him to the grass. And Be Good gets the place. Zatsu is having a good run for Williams, is also in the thick of things right there. You got a lot of teams and a lot of drivers who are trying to get good results here tonight, having a very good chance to do just that. Valk also breezing past Blue Goggy. Gets the place. And you got AMS Term, who's following Mythic in the chicane. I don't think AMS Term's too happy with how slow some of these drivers have been to his liking. Oh, and Mythic's gonna squeeze him. Mythic being a little bit bold there before turn 1 on the straight. Now Term's gonna dive it up the inside. They touch. Term maybe being a little impatient causes Mythic to go wide, and Term's gonna get the place. Maybe I think I saw on Mythic's template he had a little bit of damage that could be affecting him. And exactly why he was a little bit slower there to Term's liking. And Term has not been happy with how slow some of these drivers have been to his defense and with what he said, but I will say that Term was also out of qualifying on, you know, the one lap he did. So, although he's frustrated about other drivers being slow as he's picked up a penalty, it must be said that Term surely is not that much faster than the rest of the competition. But since joining back the session, he's gained some places. He's lost some places. He lost some places prior, but he's gained some of those back that he lost. So in his return, 14th place for him right now. It's not the best showing, especially compared to the teammate Be Good, who's making his second RPL start full-time now. It's not the best of showings, but considering all circumstances with how, you know, he was not in the session until the second safety car came out, then he was very much at the very back of the grid. And he had damage there he picked up, and he's now charged his way back through to at least have a chance to maybe be up toward that P11 area by the end of this race. Is a good sight for him considering all things that have happened to him. Tadpole seems to have a lot of entry speed, but look at the exit speed and what difference that makes right there. You can see how it's affected him compared to the others. And we've now got yellow flags for Born in Shanghai, who is trumbling around in the first sector having issues. Hunted has now picked up a penalty in P5, making it his second time penalty of this race. And you can now see the penalties will change it from the tires because everybody is on inners. But Blue Goggy is on the inters the longest of anybody. And we'll see how that goes for him. Thing is, Tadpole came out on fresher inners and gave up that track position he had. He had a monstrous lead. And he's now just only a second behind Lennon in contention for this race victory with just 10 laps remaining. With the wet rain dying down a little bit. We might get just down to sprinkles by the end of this race. Will it be enough for dry tires? I don't know. Will it be dry to where people have to change to the softs? Maybe. Shanghai has now called it quits in the pits, and his race is over with. AMS Term is now getting a place in FBL. Kippu is also in a battle with Mythic. How about Kippu on the outside line here with Mythic? Gonna go the long way around. Can he keep it though? Mythic has the damage, so of course he's going to be affected, but Kippu did not get affected being behind him for too long. He got the place. That's done and dusted. And you can see the yellow flags for Shanghai's car, which is retired coming out of the pits and now pulling off. You know, the only penalties up front that are going to affect anyone for positions here is going to be these 8 seconds for bunkers and 6 for hunted. You know, that will be the determining factor for where AMS Knights finishes. Maybe be good as well. Mythic's now got a penalty again. Now up to 11 seconds in this race. But yeah, as Tadpole does close in on the race lead with Lennon, Owen has lost out quite a bit here, and this is the only time really in a race this season so far for Mercedes that we've seen Owen struggle. And I say we've seen Owen struggle because the fact is he's been in contention for both wins, but as soon as he's been overtaken at the start, he's not been anywhere near it since. He was in closing range with Lennon at the start for a little bit, but then it just really changed once the strategy changed, and Owen's not had any pace since then at all. And he's fallen in the hands of Bonkers now for the podium place. Obviously, Bonkers is not going to appeal the 3 second, but he will surely appeal the 5 second, I would assume, or at least the 3 second if he's going to appeal anything. I doubt he'll appeal both. So Owen's comfortably got P3 here, but with all things considered, this is a disappointing race from Owen this season, and it's hard to say that considering what we've seen thus far. And he's just fallen back. He was, what, 3 seconds behind when we talked about him earlier? He's 7 seconds back from the race lead now. That is a drastic change in timing for him. It's going to play the difference here with these drivers in their battles, but yeah, we have not seen a full-up race in a while. I don't think I've commentated on a full-up race in a while myself. I've commentated on wet action, as you've seen from these qualifying sessions, but I think the last time it was for me is Italy. I've not been the main commentator, and yeah, it does show Owen's level being P3 if he is disappointing. I absolutely agree with that. You know, at least in this Mercedes, he's found some sort of pace out of nowhere. You got to wonder, where has this come from? Surely it can't be the change to PC. Surely it has to be he learned something being in a backmarker car at Haas, and he was able to apply it to being in Mercedes compared to his time at Red Bull, because he was being challenged quite a bit at Red Bull. But he was also just so clear of the field because of this current moment in terms of how he's been thus far. Term got Valk for the place right there, and now that's really the closest battle still. And as I spoke about Owen, the championship lead over Lennon into this race was a 22-point gap. Molly was P3 in the championship as a reserve. Mercedes led over Ferrari by 4 points. McLaren were back 15. Considering Mercedes were leading, and now Ferrari has both cars up there. McLaren has both cars up there. It's threatening for Mercedes if Wavy does not find a way to start scoring some points here. It's not his fault that he's not been scoring points in all of these races. I mean, today is a clear, obvious one is to just pure unluckiness. But yeah, I don't know how he's not scored points in a Mercedes. Now, the interesting thing in this race right now, because drivers did mentioning it getting dry, it has stopped raining. But I don't think it's going to be enough for any dry tires as of this current moment. So, you've got Zetsia in the back of Groggerz having a nice run for Williams. He's been in quite the show for today so far. I know he's got his way up there on strategy and is definitely close to puncture territory with those inters. But he's done a good job in terms of this race because he himself has found a way to get Williams into the points. He got in a Q3 in similar conditions here in a way in Brazil. But there's definitely quite the difference, it must be said. You know, his finishes start the season, Zatsy. It's been okay. It's been P11 and P14. But it's not been anything that is going to help this team get back to its old ways of not really being anywhere near last in the constructors. Look at Tier 1 earlier this season. Haas finished last. Williams, however, they did not finish last, and they had some good finishes to prevent them from doing so. This is the type of race they need to not have that happen. And being P9 right now is a good chance for that as Kipu gets FBL. So as Kipu just passed FBL now, we've got Mythic, who I can't tell if he's in ghost mode or AI. I can't tell what the case is, but he's ghosted, right? I can't tell if he's in the session or not. But he has switched over to the dry tires. As I did mention, it has stopped raining. So we'll find out what happens here with Mythic. FBL still following Kipu. FBL into the wall right there. And I think he's struggling for sure. He's low on the fuel. He underfueled. Zatsy is in a battle still with Groggerz, but not close enough to overtake. And Bonkers still just caught in the dirty air. Owen here. And still Owen is 7 seconds back. But yeah, the standards have absolutely been raised this season for Owen, it must be said, in terms of where he was at Haas, where he was at Red Bull, and where he's at now. Invade is got a 3-second time penalty, adding to that total. And I mentioned penalties, I mentioned tires. Well, I want to look at lap times because Term still has the fastest lap, even though you saw right there Tadpole going purple in that first sector. Bonkers with a penalty again. Now, the thing is I want to mention here, if somehow, some way, as FBL pits here, could be for softs. If anyone pits here for dry tires, it's easily going to be softs. However, the case that I wonder here in this scenario is, softs or not, I wonder if any of these guys do not pit. Ooh, Tadpole just clunks the wall a little bit there. Who can stay out and get the lead of this race? With the pit stop time you lose, it's 17 seconds. Tadpole has just set the fastest lap. With the lap times now getting close to dry tires, we can call it 18 seconds still, but not 21. So anyone 6th on up, if they try a gamble and they stay out and others pit, and it's that much of a drastic difference, I mean, if the others in front pit and they don't, it goes back to 6th if anyone has a chance to win this race. So just something to note there is you see fastest laps being traded from drivers on differing approaches here into the late stages of this race as Valk pits for Aston Martin. I just don't know if it's enough for dry tires. I think you're getting close to the point, but is it going to make any bit of a difference here? If you're also the points like Valk and Blue Goggy are, hell yeah, go for it. I love the idea, but I don't really like the approach right now from anyone inside this top 5 or 6 area. Unless they feel the spray is not going to be too significant by the end, then fine. But I don't see any reason to go for it just yet. Lennon's pulling a gap. Tadpole's losing time to Lennon. Owen's gaining on Tadpole as the conditions continue to change. Maybe Tadpole had his car set up for the interconditions. A 20.0 Lennon is now set, so he's finding time. Owen's going to go a little faster, 19.9. He's finding time, so he's gained some pace. And really, the bad race from Owen that I'm talking about, it's a little disappointing. It's not a lot, but all things considered, though, it's disappointing because of track position here. He lost track position and he can never get it back. Usually, he was the one getting track position because he never had it in these races so far this season. Groggerz pits, Zatsy pits, Invade pits, so it's a whole cluster at the final sector of drivers pitting. Term stays out, and the next one behind these guys in soft tires is Valk. And now DRS has been enabled, so now's the time to pit. This is the perfect opportunity for these guys to pit, and now you can't even see Tadpole in the screen. Well, now you can with Lennon. He's lost so much time. He's lost 2 seconds to Lennon now. So these last couple laps for Tadpole on the transition to the track drying up have not helped out in his case. Does Lennon pit here? He can easily dictate it. Tadpole sees that. Tadpole stays out. And interestingly so, but how much faster will this gamble pay out for Lennon? Does Owen pit? Owen stays out. Bonker stays out. Hunted's in. Hunted's going to speed if he doesn't get it down, but Hunted gets it down just in time. AMS Knight stays out. Be Good stays out. So differing strategies in this late window. I said there were going to be some people who stay out on the inters. You have to commit to it if you're going to stay out, and it looks like some of these guys are doing that. Be Good fastest lap. Can Lennon pull off a miraculous win similar to how Reese Dainty pulled off his Singapore win late stages of the race just a game cycle ago? Remember, this is a little bit different now as Zatsy gets Groggerz for P9. And Zatsy really still could get P8 here. The thing is, with Reese's win in Singapore, Reese was absolutely out of it. The man was P10, P11. And still, the track was changing that drastically to where he ended up P1 at the end. Bonkers made a mistake. He spun. Now he's side by side with Lennon, who's made contact with him. Blue Goggy's setting the fastest lap. The track is completely dry, so a last lap charge now from Lennon after Tadpole. Tadpole leads the race and starts the final lap. Has Lennon bottled the strategy like you think there? Josh, I don't know. I wonder. Be Good. And AMS Knights. AMS Knights has pitted, but why? Has he got a puncture? No. The problem is, you gotta commit to a strategy if you're gonna go for it. And some of these guys in the inters has, but Lennon, who committed to the softs, has now picked up a penalty. He's still going purple, so he's finding time. He still could get Owen and maybe gap himself. AMS Knights comes out on these soft tires. Did AMS Knights have the track position to do that? I don't think so. I really don't. Groggerz now fastest lap. The fastest lap is going to continue to trade, but one thing that is for certain is if Tadpole can get around, Tadpole has pulled off a strategic masterclass to win this race. He started on the wet tires, gone to inters early under the safety car, pitted again, and now he committed to the inters to come out in winning prestigious position. McLaren won round 3 last season. Tadpole's last win comes from his championship season, and now he wins once again. Tadpole, a winner in RPL for the first time in over 4 seasons. He wins the Canadian Grand Prix. Owen is second. Lennon is only third and absolutely bottled the strategy. Be Good, fourth. Bonkers, Hunted, they all crossed the line behind that. AMS Knights is trying to go for fastest lap. It's a car park after the start-finish line, and it looks like Zatsy's going to get P8 here for our Williams. Just needs to hold on over Groggerz, and Zatsy will do it. Zatsy gets a decent race for Williams in. And look at this car park. My God. Valk will get P12. P11 after penalties. Wow, this is a really big car park. Kipu. Blue Goggy is off. And he'll be the last one to cross the start-finish line. Oh my God! Holy cow. Tadpole, for the first time since Season 8, has won an RPL. You had Season 11 happen, Season 10, Season 9, and now you go back 4 seasons to Season 8. Since the last time he won. Actually, it was Season 7, excuse me, right there. Season 7, the last time he won an RPL race. Excuse me, 4 seasons ago it was. And now, with this podium celebration, he can finally celebrate at the top step of the podium once again. Puncture on the second to last lap from Knights. I see why. That makes sense now. I knew it was close for a lot of these guys, but there you have it. Hunted fastest lap for McLaren, so adds on to their tally. With the 36 points from them to Mercedes 18, that 18-point gap that they just gained right there might just get them the constructor's lead. My driver of the day, Tadpole. I have to give a shout out to Zatsi and Groggerz, though. They actually really deserve a shout out here. Because although I'm not giving them driver of the day, they ran smooth races. They ran 8th and 9th, that best of the rest battle. Look where they started. Zatsi was 8th. Groggerz was 9th in this race. They started from P11 and P18. Just absolute scenes with where they at the end of this one. But yeah, Lennon needed a lot more. Needed the track to be completely much more drier in order to have a chance at Tadpole there at the end. But Tadpole wins for the first time since Season 7, which is a seriously long time. And it was this track where he had a podium for Alpine 2 seasons prior. The last time we ran this race, he's now on the top 7 of the podium once again. What a strategy masterclass from Tadpole to win this race. Isn't it interesting how the first Tier 2 race of the game cycle, it was the Alpine Academy with ads winning? And this time around, it was Tadpole. Or sorry, not the game cycle of 2023, excuse me. Well, either way, I'm giving my driver of the day to Tadpole. I think Zatsi and Groggerz genuinely do come a close second. Or not a close first, but a close second with one another. Second and third for them for my driver of the day rankings. I really don't know where to start with them two because you know what? Zatsi and Groggerz said he needed some luck. I will say maybe I was some good luck for Groggerz. And I guess you could say the interview curse ends up again because Ferrari had a chance to win. They didn't. McLaren had a chance to be in better pursuit in Brazil, and they weren't for Alpine Academy. But, yeah, second different one to win. And it was the past champion this time of Tadpole winning in Canada. Tadpole, the past champion. Isn't that interesting to say? Tadpole, the past champion, won in Canada. And the only 2 winners this season have won races this season. The only past 2 champions. The only 2 winners. It's such an interesting sight to see in RPL Tier 2. The past champions are back at it. Rather than some new winners. Maybe we'll see some new winners soon, but it's going to take a little bit. 2 of the 3 past champions out on top here. And then if we're not getting technical, at least, I guess you could say, the only past the only pole sitter or winner, not to be a champion, excuse me, to start the season was Stenner in Brazil for Ferrari. Well, that's going to do it for tonight, folks. The final Tier 2 race of 2023 is in the history books, and it's one we'll have to talk about for a while. Lennon bottled it. Tadpole took advantage, and he won the race for McLaren to at least keep up that chance of them getting another constructor's title. let alone maybe their first. I think of it in a way where they absolutely did the right thing here. They've found their way from the end of last season, just missing out of the Constructors title, to now having another chance once again, another go at it. We'll find out if that ends up being the case at season's end. But next week, we go to Japan for Tier 2. Or sorry, next race, not next week. I've had a lot of buffers today, my bad. But it's the first race of 2024, which will be held in Japan. It's the first Tier 2 race that I commentated. It was back in Japan in this league. So very nice to be back there for another event. Either way, tune in later this weekend. Australia on Saturday, tomorrow, 8 p.m. UK time. Netherlands, 7 p.m. UK time on the Sunday for Formula Endurance. We will see you then for more RPL action. But for the final time in 2023 for Tier 2, that will cap it off. And we'll see you for next year in Tier 2. And we'll see you tomorrow for the final F1 race of 2023. Good night, folks.